And saying good morning to everybody across the Midwest, the country, and the world at large. It is Mornings with Josh Grisham at My 100.1 alongside Nerd Informants Media. Well, chalk another one off of the interview list, and this is a first for me, and there's a lot of excitement that goes along with it. We have got a very special guest who is a legendary man with an equally legendary appetite. He has given us great television, great stories, and even greater food in his remarkable career. He's known for Man vs. Food, The Good Dish, and The Food That Built America. Please welcome a food icon in Adam Richman. Welcome to the show, sir.
Very kind introduction. Thank you for having me.
Oh, buddy, man. First off, I am so delighted that you are here and giving us time on My 100.1, Adam. First questions first, how are you and your stomach doing these days?
I am well, and I am even better because I don't have to try 41-year-old Star Wars cookies or a 38-year-old high-C ecto cooler.
Oh, man, I can only imagine. And you've given us so much in your career, man. You were a big part of my youth. Myself, my family, all of our friends, everybody in the Midwest loves them some Adam Richman. And, of course, that goes so far back, 2008 and well beyond that. You've got this new series. It has made its premiere at the end of February. It's 10 episodes in the series. It is Adam Eats the 80s. By the way, I love the name. Talk to me about this concept and how did the 80s come finding you?
So simply put, the show is basically looking at this ultra-dynamic, exciting decade in American history through the prism of food. And we go to the origin stories of foods, flavors, and brands that went on to become national and global icons. And we work with chefs and collectors and food scientists to recreate and resurrect flavors and other foods that came out in the 80s and sort of have gone the way of the dodo. In terms of why the 80s, I think, it was a decade, it was the last decade before the internet. We all consumed the same pop culture, so there was a little bit more of a unified society, but also the food space changed in the 80s, maybe more than any other decade and a half century. And you had the invention of the microwave. You had, things no longer being sweetened with sugar, but rather high fructose corn syrup. You had beef become more expensive, so then chicken and fast food chicken became an explosion. You had latchkey kids because both parents suddenly were working, so suddenly children were marketed to, in a different way, and it changed the food landscape forever. It wasn't just big hair and big shoulder pads.
And the craziest thing is, I just wonder about the creative process that went into this because you've given us so much when it comes to food, and if there's anybody that has got a discerning palate on every single corner, it is Adam Richman. So when you were picking these products out and these food to put behind these 10 episodes in this series, how tough was that for you to settle on a particular food or an item to feature?
Man, there's so many because, so many of these things could be regional. For example, the breakfast pizza we did in the first episode, Domino's did a breakfast pizza for 6 months in 1985, but they only released it in certain markets.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, and I didn't even know it existed until doing research for the show. So it wasn't part of my 80s memories, but I know it makes for good TV. So that's the balance. The difference is maybe something like a McDonald's French fry, which we all had.
Yeah.
And then the question is, do I think McDonald's fries taste better when I was younger because of nostalgia or because they tasted better?
Yeah. So
to have a real food scientist recreate them both and go, all right, I can bring this palate that I've developed over time and go, okay, Coca-Cola is better with sugar than it is with high fructose corn syrup.
That is so cool. And when I think about these episodes and I think about some of these products, the trial versions that never got released amongst the masses, visually in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, man, Adam's got to be going to like this warehouse. It was like featured in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You've got all these boxes. It's like the Ark of the Covenant. Was some of this stuff, was it really secretive in that approach? I mean, did you have any major hurdles to get across to get hands on these trial products?
Absolutely. My gosh. For example, we filmed with Samuel Adams and we filmed with Jim Cook, the man himself behind the brand. He had the original recipe for Sam Adams Boston Lager was his father's recipe, and they found it in a trunk of car magazines in the attic of their home. He still has the handwritten recipe, and you had to see this man, he's no spring chicken, leap to make sure we didn't show it on camera. And he insisted, he looked at the monitor and had his PR team look and make sure that I covered up everything other than the name of the recipe. Auntie Anne's Pretzels, we went to the first ever location ever of this billion-dollar corporation, Auntie Anne's, the first one that ever existed in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And there's this dip, this kind of solution they dip the pretzels in, and it changes everything. And they don't tell. They sell it as the secret dip. They sell their dough prepackaged to the franchises. It's all very secretive. And that's kind of the thing. We wanted to, like, contrast the brands that have had to pivot with the ones that say, no, we made it like this. This is how we make Cinnabons, and this is how we're always going to make Cinnabons. This is how we make orange chicken at Panda Express. This is how we're always going to make Panda Express orange chicken. So,
and the cool thing about that is, the food is one thing. The food is part of the man, and it has been since well before 2008. But, for me, in watching you on television and the way you put your programming together, the food is one aspect of it, but it's also Adam Richman's infectious personality, the way you engage with the businesses and the owners, and the way you tell your story. There's magic in that recipe as well. What would you attribute, as far as the longevity and how you approach the presentation when you're on camera? It's truly something special, but how would you chalk that all up? Where's the magic in that for you?
First of all, thank you. That is incredibly kind. It's very humbling. I really appreciate that. I guess, I'll be honest with you. I'd love to have some cool canned answer. The truth is I couldn't afford cable until I got on cable. No, that's the truth. Until I had a show on cable. And I remember I pulled up the guide screen, and I remember, thinking, I've got fans, and there's 900 channels, and they're choosing to spend a half hour of their time with me instead of 899 other channels. And there was this profound debt of respect kind of washed over me.
Yeah.
And I had to realize everything I do on camera has to have two things, right? It has to be important. I can't be lax, been there, done that. It has to be crucial and necessary. And the other thing is, I'm you. I'm the viewer. So if I'm a rude, boorish, you know what, then people will feel like I'm representing them poorly. But if I'm respectful, deferential, if I'm genuinely excited, and this stuff genuinely excites me, you're going to feel it. Because if I'm open and I'm just there in service of showing you what's awesome, then I think I take you along for the journey, and I think maybe that's why people respond to my shows. Because, for example, I was extremely uncomfortable that the network wanted me to have my name in the title because it's about the decade. It's about these restaurants. It's not about me. And but they're like, no, we want to come on the journey with you. So, even that is such a humbling compliment that I feel, let me just take us on the journey. It's my journey, but you're with me. So I think that as long as I don't get ahead of myself and get a little too arrogant and self-important, because the universe has a way of spanking you when you do.
Yeah, no, and one of the things I've always been curious about as well, since you've been doing this as long as you have, and food, it's safe to say, has been very good to you. What is it like for you to hear when somebody says, Adam Richman, pop culture icon, or a fan, somebody that writes to you or sends you an email or during an interview or a phone call, whatever it is, and they say, Adam, you got me out of the house. I hit the road. I went to these restaurants or these locations that you were at for the very first time, and I experienced something cultural or a new food taste, or somebody discovers a product for the first time because of Adam Richman. Does that ever get old, or is that something that you hear, and what kind of impact does that have on you?
No, I'm a super emotional cat, so I get choked up. In fact, so I filmed something at Universal Orlando, and I had a tour, as part of a thank you for flying down to do this interview. They got me a tour of Universal, and someone paid me a very deep compliment in the gift shop outside the Jurassic Park ride. And I he sent me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "It still shakes me." And I showed him. I said, "I still get goosebumps." It's just surreal because if you've ever struggled, that the next, like the great late John Spencer from The West Wing said, as a working actor, as a working performer, the next gig is its own reward. That to know that you have achieved something beyond yourself that made other people happy, and it's not like I bought them a gift and then they're happy. Like I just exposed something and it unlocked something in them and they made themselves happy. That's the thing. Like to get letters to this day, from season 1 Man vs. Food Restaurants from 2008 and 2009, saying that what I did for their family and what I did for their restaurant. I'm like, I just pointed the camera at what you were doing. You were doing it. I just happened to be a conduit. And that's I think a kind of noble. Mom wanted to be a doctor, so that's a much more noble calling. But I think as long as I'm helping people or making people happy, there's a nobility in that as well.
Oh man, now I love the way you say that. That is 100% correct. I mean, it is the restaurants, but it's the way you delivered it and brought it into all of our homes over the years. I mean, you gave us your life and you put your stomach on the line to give us good and engaging TV, man. I mean, that is it,
Very kind of you to say. I did my best.
Hey, I know we're right up against the wall here for your tour time. You're a very busy guy. I know they added an extra hour. That's how popular you are, my friend. Real fun question for you. Obviously, if this does really well, and I have no doubt that it will, there's got to be so much more food for you to uncover. Let me ask you a fun question. Adam Richman, your food holy grail. What's that one food item that you have yet to come across that you would love to feature?
From the 80s or in general?
Oh, 80s or in general, whichever you would like to pick, my friend.
You know what I've always wanted to do? I'll tell you, there's 3 shows I've always wanted to do. One about the festivals that are centered around the food, like the Gilroy Garlic Festival or Traverse City, Michigan Cherry Festival, like those. One, I want to do all about minor league ballparks. And then one about the eating streets and street food from around the world. I know that there's a street food show on Netflix, but I want to host one and bring people to Jalan Alor, this crazy eating street in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and make it accessible to people and encourage them to try new stuff.
Oh, man, I love it. I'm there for it. Let's pitch it. Let's make it happen. I cannot wait to dive back into this series. You've given us so much, buddy, and I know that any direction you choose to go in your life when it comes to food, nobody does it better than Adam Richman. You tell a great story. I'd love to see you at ballparks and then traveling the world a la Anthony Bourdain. I just say make it happen.
Thank you. I'm working on it.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. It's Adam Richman. He is an icon in food. Adam Eats the 80s. Make sure you check it out. It is a 10-episode series currently underway. Thank you for your time, my friend.
Thank you.